Hello and welcome. Let's take a great posture. Take a good breath and with a bow, give it away. Now we'll just calmly meditate for half an hour. Just kidding. So, it is a good idea to meditate regularly. It makes everything we ever discuss easier because, like similar to the Obama campaign in 2007, where they hired people who had low drama attitudes, creating a low drama foundation for our high drama life will enable us to breathe through the tough parts and actually see clearly instead of just seeing blame, and learn from things and make genuine and deeper connections. So today I wanted to talk about how to have really hard conversations. And first I wanted to thank our sponsor, McDonald's. They make the world happier. Thank you, McDonald's, for going 100% plastic-free, vegan, and organic. It's a complete surprise to me. So thank you to the Big M, the Golden Arches. So, how to have really hard conversations. Recently I've had some good friends here who will go unnamed, but if they're listening, they will totally know I'm talking about them. And they, from the outside, are kind of like Stepford Wives material. They're, if you don't get the reference, I don't know if the book or the movie is good, but it's a great image, which is perfectionism is cold. So, when you push away anything troubling and you just try to be happy and positive, it gives you that sort of fake Coke smile with a little Botox thrown in, and you can't actually feel any joy in your cold heart because you've pushed away, out of a good, well-intentioned place, you've pushed away pain and fear and therefore empathy and feeling. And so my friends are not like that. They're wonderful, cheerful, caring people. They're vegan-ish, which is, I think, pretty much the same thing as eating meat. They're wonderful parents. They're incredibly environmentally responsible. Both of them are buddies, and one of them, who's a climber and filmmaker and all this cool stuff, offsets all his flights for his entire company, which is big and successful. And anyway, they're great. So both of them live in Europe, and they are Spanish origin. So they basically have this picture perfect relationship and family and children from the outside. That's why I said the Stepford wife thing, not because of their attitude, but because of how they look from the outside. Like, they have it all together. But if you talk with them and hang out with them, there's some hard conversations that they have spent a lot of energy on not having for a long time. So for all of those of you who believe in astrology or crystals or happy, good vibes only, I think you and I finally have something we can agree on, which is that if you suppress all these feelings out of, again, a well-intentioned place, that you don't want to have a messy, awful conversation and mess up a great relationship or whatever your concern is, you're going to bottle everything up. And remember, we've already had a test case. The entire British Empire did the stiff upper lip suppression of emotions thing for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it creates incredibly dysfunctional human beings. So empathy, we say, is the most powerful human emotion. So if you can be willing to feel vulnerable, be willing to feel open and brave and scared, and say, you know what, Vanessa, or husband or wife or friend or colleague, I need to talk to you about this thing that you did that really hurt me or offended me. And then you both have that conversation, which includes not just a monologue or yelling, but listening. And yelling should be basically off limits. I kind of agree with that in my old age. I feel like, I had Italian roommates in college, and they loved yelling and they loved arguing, and I kind of loved their delight and humor about that anger and arguing was sort of not a big deal to them. But we Americans, at least if you're American, we don't really have that in our genes. We think of arguments as pretty hot, heavy, solid, and unhappy things. We take our anger very seriously. So I think generally, if you're raising your voice, it's because you don't feel like you're listened to. And at that point, you need to take a step back, breathe, listen, and either quit the conversation and come back at a time when you've cooled down, or if you can cool down on the spot, both of you, not just one of you, then you can go forward. But aside from the raising voice thing, I think it's good to just kind of go in. So my main advice about how to have that tough conversation is there will never be a right time. If you've been waiting a year or 5 years or 5 years not having a tough conversation about your partnership or whatever, like in my friend's case, the best time is yesterday and the next best time is right now, as they say about planting trees. With trees, they say the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago and the next best time is today. So how do you just go in and have this really tough conversation if you're concerned it might open up a whole can of worms and your relationship might fall apart, and you have a house, you have a mortgage, you have children, you have all this stuff riding on your relationship working, and maybe your relationship hasn't been working on the inside, but on the outside it's still stable enough for your life to continue. You share a bank account, you do all these things together, but at some point you have to kind of go in like, as Miley Cyrus would say, like a wrecking ball. And you have to just kind of, and again, like a nice, empathetic, peaceful, listening wrecking ball. But you have to go in and you have to say, look, I'm going to use Vanessa because she's right here, but it's totally inappropriate because we're colleagues, but we're also friends. But if I said, you know what, Vanessa, you said this thing 8 months ago that I've never been able to get over, and it really offended me. And I'd just love to have that conversation if that's okay. And I think that's the way you got to start these conversations. You have to say, you don't start it while you're biking to a party together and you're kind of distracted. You have to say, can we pause and take a moment to have that conversation? And I also think just out of kindness, I don't think it's helpful to say, text Vanessa and say, we really need to talk. Can we talk tomorrow? That stuff is scary and stressful. That would ruin my entire night off if I got a text like that from a friend, from a loved one, from a mom, from a whomever. If Redford texted me and said, we got to talk about this new vegan diet, let's talk tomorrow. Except he didn't say vegan diet. So I don't know what the issue is. It's just tense. So don't forewarn someone a day in advance. Just say, find a moment when you have an opportunity to talk for an hour or whatever, and maybe that's not your plan, but you can make an hour and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this thing that you said 8 months ago about how I'm incredibly good looking, charming, and yet somehow humble. And I just felt like, while that's all true, obviously, I feel like you left out how buff I am, and that really undermined my self-esteem. So then to be serious, like imagine you're in a relationship, a marriage, with a mortgage, with 3 children, with a business, all this, but you're not happy. You're not getting crazy with each other romantically, sexually. Your relationship is on hold, partially because of children, partially because you're no longer feeling it. You gotta have that conversation. And how do you have it? You have it. You just go in like a empathetic, gentle wrecking ball. You just gotta go in. The point of the wrecking ball is there's no way, I'm just going to coin an expression, no one's ever said this before, there's no way to make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So, from a vegan point of view, there's no way to make a vegan huevos without having some great hot sauce or something. So, I think the main brilliant advice here, which isn't mine, it's sort of the Buddhist notion of being willing to be vulnerable, is saying start it properly, end it properly. Listen throughout, but when you speak, notice your body language. If you're crossing your arms, maybe try to uncross them. If you're looking down, try to look up and make eye contact. Maybe not in a scary kind of way, but just like try to look at the person and do try to listen. And if you know you're half right and half wrong, and they're half right, and that be willing to accept a little bit of blame. As I have an article on this on elephantjournal.com, ding, but be willing to give an inch. Be willing to be the first to give an inch. That doesn't mean you have to self-flagellate and take blame. It's not cool in sort of, feminist and social media worlds to say, stop apologizing. And I get it. Like, particularly women, minorities, stop apologizing. Respect. That said, among human beings, it's pretty healthy to take responsibility. Otherwise, we get into the situation where instead of having a conversation and listening and sharing and learning and opening and being vulnerable and genuine, we're pushing the hot potato of blame back and forth, and that's all we're doing. And what happens every time you push it back and forth? Every single time, it gets 5% bigger. So you don't have to take the blame in a kind of guilty, sort of ex-Catholic way, but you do need to take the blame. I need to take the blame in a fake it till you make it kind of way. Like, look, Vanessa, I'm sure I could have listened better, and I'm sorry I said that thing. Find something you can apologize for, even if you're reaching. And usually you'll have a lot you can apologize for in a very easy way. But sometimes we feel very right, in a dysfunctional relationship. We're like, look, I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that, and you still somehow, found the one thing I did wrong and are picking on me and blah, blah, blah. And maybe it's all on the other person, but find something. And you don't have to let the other person use that something against you. You can just claim that for yourself and your own responsibility, and then talk about truth. Trungpa Rinpoche says, the Buddhist teacher says, the best strategy is no strategy at all. The best strategy is to be genuine. And he also says, as a corollary, as an opposite, he says, the something like the most dangerous weapon is self-deception. So in trying to make ourselves innocent or resolve those storylines like we all do for a million hours after we have an argument, Calvin and Hobbes had a cartoon about that where Calvin was like, why do I always think of great comebacks the next day? So we spend an entire day or an entire year or an entire lifetime going through the story again and again until it adds up and makes sense and makes us look like the hero. Instead of that, take a little blame, meditate, exercise, get in nature, get around green stuff, get off of your phone, get off of your screens, eat some real food, and relax when you do so and be present while you do so. Stop multitasking. Get yourself in a good space. Say, sweetie, say friend, say whatever, colleague, can we have a conversation? Let's go for a walk. And walking, by the way, is a great way to do it, because facing each other, just like with dogs, can be quite confrontational. Going somewhere together is a physical analogy for what you're trying to do as a relationship. So if you're walking side by side along a path, that's fantastic. And meanwhile, you're half listening and you're half being present with the trees and the whatever. And those two, that's a good half present. It's not a bad one. Those two, because the trees and the water, if you're walking along a path and visualizing the bike path in Boulder, will kind of intermingle and aerate the solidity of your emotions. And as I read this morning in a Buddhist book, emotions seem like a big, solid, scary deal, but they were born in a little moment of conflict and separation of you versus me as little thoughts, and then we failed to meditate or get present or digest or resolve them, and then they spun out into, potentially World War III. So the main thing is stop going forward, trying to keep some sort of hollow perfection going. No matter how well-intentioned that is, you got to break that omelet, break the egg, make the omelet. You deserve to have, if you're in a relationship that isn't working, you deserve to have sex, you deserve to have affection, you deserve to have love. And you can't have any of those things if you don't first have a tough conversation that may be messy. And I want to conclude by just saying bravery is sort of overrated in a sense. It's easy to say, be brave, go have that tough conversation. But why would you want to do it if you know you're going to mess up? You're going to mess up your whole life. You're going to mess up your family. You're going to mess up the conversation. It's going to be scary. It's going to be awful. You don't know if it's going to go left or right or up or down or south. So have empathy for yourself in that you haven't wanted to be brave because you know you might mess it up. I use the analogy for myself of I love to draw, I love to write, I love to do calligraphy, but I would never do calligraphy, like try to calligraph the word conflict or empathy or relationship. I would never do that with a pen that was completely messed up and didn't have a good edge on it, wasn't clear, because you would just make an awful word. And that's how so many of us feel with these conversations. We feel like, why would I go forward and do this when I don't have a good tool? I don't have a precise tool. I don't have confidence in, my training to be able to do this. I'm just going to mess things up worse. So you have to be brave, but you do still have to be brave. But you have to be gentle as well with the other person and with yourself, and know you can say, look, I'm sure we're going to mess up this conversation. We're idiots. I'm an idiot at least. But we gotta try, we gotta have it, and if it means that we're going to break up and we'll have to figure out the family, we're gonna also have to have tough conversations about how to do that respectfully and in a friendly way, and instead of just litigating up, which is further warfare. So obviously there's a lot of generalizations and hypotheticals here. Your situation may be different, but let this just be a little gentle, brave push for you to jump in, to take the leap and have a needed conversation instead of walking around for 10 years with that weight on your back. That weight grows, 5% every year. So just have the tough conversation and get lighter. Free yourself of that weight and give yourself a life of freedom that you deserve. So hopefully that was helpful, and may it be of some small benefit. With a bow, take a good posture, and bowing, give it away.